Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to some more Bad Day. No idea why I did that. But anyway, I'm your host, TC Smith. Now in today's video, we're going to be doing something I don't normally do. It's something I've never done before. Lots of channels have started to do it. I remember it from, I believe it was Zoo Tier, which ranked animals. So as you probably guessed, it is a tier ranking system. And I'm going to start off with ranking all the Premier League sides from this year. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Now all of this is my own opinion, but in F tier we have Cardiff, City and Fulham. And I'm normally going to go club by club, but I lost the footage of the other one. But yeah, so in F tier is Cardiff and Fulham. Fulham have conceded way too many goals this year. They have been utterly dreadful, to be honest. Cardiff, I know lots of people are saying that's a bit harsh, and it might be a bit harsh, but for me, I mean, they've got relegated. They haven't done that well. There aren't many positives of this season, so they have to be in F tier. Our first team at E tier is Newcastle United. Now, in retrospect, I do think this is a bit harsh, but I mean, they haven't done very well this season. I mean, the highlight was probably beating Manchester United, but I mean, even Cardiff managed that this year, so I think the only positive for them really is that they haven't got relegated. With the teams at the bottom side, I think it's a bit up for debate, in my opinion. I don't follow these clubs, so I don't really know. But in my opinion, E tier. Our second club in at E tier is Brighton. Now, they've had a few good games. They haven't done too badly. But yet again, they've lost their manager. Their manager's gone. They haven't really impressed anyone. It's been kind of just a average season, and with the way I rank the higher teams, this is really the only place I could put them. Now, our third team in the E tier is Huddersfield. Now, they are probably have done worse than Newcastle and Brighton. Like, they've had less good moments. They've probably just been a somewhat decent team. I can't remember if they've got relegated or not now. If they have, then it should be an F tier, but should probably double check that. But they have lost their manager as well. He left, so I mean, the highest they could go is bottom of E, maybe top of F. That's their range. Now we do have another team in at E tier, and it is Southampton. Now this may raise a few heads. People wondering, well, these club is better than them, but they haven't done so well this year, and they've had a few good moments throughout the year, with Ward-Prowse being a great free kick taker, and they've finished off somewhat strong compared to the rest of the season at the end. But I still think, based on how I'm ranking them, they're an E team. Now I think they're probably towards the top of the E tier, but they are definitely E tier for me. Now, our first team in D tier is none other than Crystal Palace. Now, they haven't had the best year, but they haven't had a terrible season either. I mean, they have Zaha, who has been great for them. He's their main attacking source. But in the January transfer window, they managed to bring in Batshuayi on loan, which is a great bit of business. He's a great improvement on Benteke or any other striker they decided to play up there. So I think they still need to improve the team, but with Batshuayi, at least it's a step in the right direction. And since they haven't been amazing, but they haven't been bad, D tier seems, well, a fit for them, really. Now, this is the one I struggled with. Burnley, are they E or D tier? Now, what's put them in D tier for me is their end of the season. When Tom Heaton got back, they did really well. I mean, I don't blame Joe Hart. I think Joe Hart's an underrated goalkeeper. But when Tom Heaton got back, he did do better than Joe Hart did. And the defence just sorted itself out, and they became that defensive, solid team again. Now, I think they could be a very good team if they just improve. Either get, even more defensive. But I would say try and get a very, very clinical striker or a very creative midfielder. Just one, because that very creative attacking midfielder can then create more opportunities for their strikers, which means more goals, which increases their chances of winning while still playing defensively. Or they create the same number of chances, they just get someone who can finish them better. I think that's the next step they need to take to improve. But I think they're a bottom D tier list. Like, they're bottom on the D tier, where Crystal Palace are like probably mid to upper D tier. Our third team in D tier is Bournemouth. Now, they started off this season in pretty good form, doing very well, being the upper side of the table, and I thought this could be a good year for them. They could be up there with the likes of Wolves, West Ham, Everton, challenging for those spots in what Leicester is now, for example. I thought they would be that because they're a very free-flowing and quite a progressive football team for the size of the club. But they went through a terrible patch. Well, I say terrible, I mean bad for them. And then obviously Callum Wilson came back and it boosted them. And Callum Wilson and Fraser have good chemistry and get a lot of goals and assists between them. And since then they've been doing a lot better. But I think they just need that consistency. Obviously they're going to lose games, but I just think they need to go a patch without losing so many in a row or drawing a lot if they really want to push on for those just out of Europe spots. Now, this might surprise some people to see West Ham coming in D tier, but trust me, when you see the other tiers, you'll understand why. Now, I put West Ham here because while they started off, I think they started off bad and they went in some good form with Felipe Anderson doing very good, and they have Declan Rice, who's done really good this season. He's been one of their standout players. But for me, I think they lost a bit of traction partway through the year and they just haven't been in the public eye as much and all this. And I think they're quite a good D tier side. I think they're probably up to the higher D tier, especially since they finished quite high in the Premier League. But I just think there's just something about the club that stops them getting to that next level. Our first C tier team is Watford. Now, this was I designed this before the FA Cup final. Of course, they got to an FA Cup final. They finished quite high in the league and for some points were in that 9th, 8th spot, even challenging Wolves. Now, obviously, it didn't end like that because other teams had a few games in hand which made them overtake them, but they got to an FA Cup final. They did get battered 6-0, 5-0 was it, by Manchester City. But I mean, this is a dominant Manchester City team, so you can't really hold that against them. And they've been a very solid team. Delafeu being a key player. I mean, he's had some amazing games. If he just does that more often, they will finish even higher. But great team, just not good enough to get any higher, but solid to be above the rest. Now, we all saw this coming. Everton in at C tier. They did finish 8th after all, behind the top 6, and then Wolves, who proved themselves to be better than the rest. Now, towards the end of the season, they've done very well, keeping quite a few clean sheets, in fact, and have done very well, with their left-back Digne being a key player in some of that. They've had a pretty much Richarlison at the beginning of the year. They started off the beginning really well. They had an end of the season, but they did have a bit of a slump, as they were still finding their feet under Marco Silva, their manager, who I think is a great manager, and I think they should keep with him because he has potential to do very well with this club. They just need to try and progress this team forward. I think it's a bit of an ageing squad still, so maybe try and get in some younger players here and there can really help this team out. Now, we should have all seen this coming. Leicester City, who won the Premier League title not that long ago and did very well, surprisingly, in Europe, in the Champions League, are now doing very, very well under Brendan Rodgers. I mean, they've done good this season, they've done this season, but under Brendan Rodgers, they have looked a great side, like a mini Liverpool, a mini Manchester City. Tielemans and Maddison being key to that, both being amazing players on the ball. Maddison being great at finding those pockets of space and helping the team progress. Really, and their midfield of Ndidi, Tielemans and Maddison is great. Vardy, we're getting the best out of Vardy. The only downside really for me is one, they didn't finish higher, and Iheanacho's still off form because I think he's a great player, and I don't know what's happened to him. There is no surprise that Wolf was ranked higher on this tier list, but ranking B tier, B tier, you're probably thinking is a bit too high. And I think they are very high up in that C tier, borderline low B tier, with how good they've been. They've been better than the rest. They've been very good. They finished 7th. And really, the only way they can improve is getting a few more players in, because their strikers have done great, and Neves has done great in midfield. I think he's a top 6 team. Now, I lost footage of me putting Arsenal in, so in B tier, alongside Wolves, we have Arsenal and Manchester United. Now I'm going to talk about the latter first. Manchester United have had quite a torrid season by their standards. They finished in 6th place in the league, behind the likes of Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, quite in that order as well. Now, Manchester United was dreadful under Jose Mourinho. They kicked him out partway through the season, around December time. And then they brought in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who did amazing in his first few games, better than anyone would have thought, and carried it on. He made an amazing comeback against PSG, and it was after that it started going downhill. Now, some people think they should get him out. I don't. I believe they should keep him. They need to change personnel. I think they should keep Pogba and Fred, which are 2 people that everyone thinks should leave. But anyone else who's toxic or doesn't work hard enough, whether it's Sanchez, Lukaku, whoever, I say get them out. Anyone who's getting a bit on in age, sell them now, get them money for them, and then use that money to buy players who will work for the badge and are talented. I would say use Dalot a lot more at right back and get in Wan-Bissaka, and I think get a sporting director, and they should do a lot better. It's a project. They're not going to be better overnight, but in the next 2, 3, 4 seasons they will start getting better. But by their standards, they have done terrible. But this is the thing people also forget about this. They have done a terrible season, yet despite it being terrible for them, they are still miles better than any other team in the Premier League, and this includes Wolves. Now, I know Wolves beat them twice in the Premier League, but Wolves are far off the top 6 in terms of points, which shows you how good the top 6 actually are. Now, as for Arsenal, they have a great strike force with Lacazette, Aubameyang. When one of them's, it's rare that none of them are hitting. Either they're both hitting very well, which is when Arsenal are at their best, or Aubameyang's doing very good and Lacazette may be struggling, or vice versa. And Ozil has been, he's had a few good games, hasn't. Maybe they should sell him, maybe they should keep him, I'm not sure. They've got rid of one of their best players this year, Ramsey. I know he didn't play a lot of games, but when he did play, he showed how important he was. I think they need a creative midfielder to bring in, because they have Torreira and either Xhaka, but I say Torreira and Guendouzi, and then a creative midfielder. But their main problem is their defence. And for me, their player of the year, in my opinion, I may be biased because I'm a goalkeeper, is Leno. Anyway, I think were unlucky. I personally would have preferred it if they finished 4th, Tottenham finished 3rd, and Chelsea finished 5th. I don't know. It's very hard to explain why. I just think they deserved it more. But they can still get into Champions League football by winning the Europa League against Chelsea. Speak of the Devils, and not the Red Devils, Chelsea are also finishing up in B tier. Now, the reason they did very good at the beginning of the year, which I'm not sure if you could remember, but they did, showing that Sarri ball does work. But then over time, they wore out. Their strikers weren't firing, and they struggled a lot. Hazard had to play out of position, which could have contributed to him wanting to leave to go to Real Madrid. And then bringing Higuain, who didn't work, and then getting a new manager in Kepa. Now, obviously, Kepa's not really the manager, but that debacle, all that stuff, really didn't help Chelsea's season. But now I think if they try and promote youth a bit, since I believe they're banned for 2 years in the transfer window, or 2 transfer windows, I believe promote some youth, get them playing Sarri ball, and next year they should be fine. If not, a year or two they should catch on and do very well. And when he's able to buy players again, you'll see the true meaning of Sarri ball. Now, here in A, we have Tottenham Hotspurs. Now, I know some of you will be thinking, especially you Chelsea fans, oh, Chelsea finished higher than in the league, that means they're better, blah, 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 blah. Well, Tottenham have been more consistent, and even when their main player, Harry Kane, has been injured, either Son Heung-min has stepped up, or Sonaldo, or Lucas Moura, who helped sort of Ajax in the Champions League semi-final to get them to the Champions League final. And while Chelsea are in a Europa League final, the Champions League is a lot tougher competition, and a one that Tottenham have reached the final. So I believe that this does help push them into an A team. And I think for me this is their first time being an A team. I think because some of the other teams over the last few years would have been A and they would have been like a high B, but I think getting to that Champions League final pushed them that extra barrier, getting them into A tier. Now, there's literally no surprise that Liverpool would end up in S tier. They have been phenomenal. They've dominated the league and every competition they've been in. They've got a great team. I think they still need a creative player to go in their midfield, since their midfield's very workmanlike, which really helps them sometimes. But I think getting a creative player can help, and maybe another great centre-back to partner Van Dijk can help them step up a level and maybe a better backup to Firmino. But having said that, they finished the season with 97 points and still didn't manage to win the league, 1 point behind Manchester City, and they had made an amazing comeback to Barcelona, one of the best teams in the world, in the Champions League semi-final, winning 4-0 in the second leg, which is 4-3 on aggregate, making them go to a Champions League final. And I edge them to beat Spurs in that Champions League final, meaning they would have finished second behind a dominant Manchester City in the league and finished first in the Champions League. And they have reached their second consecutive Champions League final with major upgrades. It shows how good Jurgen Klopp is. He improves players, but he also makes the correct signings with Alisson and Van Dijk and just helps mould that team together. Fabinho and Naby Keita, he brought on all of these, and you've already seen some improvement on them. Now, Keita hasn't done as well as we thought he could have, but he's done phenomenally well in the past, and I believe Jurgen Klopp can get it out of him. But yeah, they are a phenomenal team, and I cannot wait to see Trent Alexander-Arnold in his prime under the likes of Jurgen Klopp if he stays at Liverpool. Now, this would come as no surprise to you that Manchester City also finished in S tier. They have been dominant in the league. They managed to catch up to Liverpool. Liverpool at one point had the chance to go 7 points clear at the top of the league, and they ended up losing the league by 1 point to Manchester City, who finished on 98 points. Being absolutely phenomenal. They have such depth in their squad. They have depth that most teams can only dream of. Now, they can still improve. There are some players in there I just believe aren't City level, aren't top quality levels. When I think would Real Madrid or Barcelona buy them, I just don't think so. And those are the two best teams in recent history. So I think if you want to be a top team, you have to think, would they buy them? If not, then I really think you should think again, just double think it to make sure you want to buy them. And they obviously need someone to help fill in for Fernandinho when he's injured, because he's been great for City. He's been key to City. Maybe a bit cover at left back, or a better left back, and have the current left back, I can't remember his name, but it begins with a Z, start. Have him on the bench and have a new left back. Maybe Alaba. Alaba was amazing under Pep Guardiola, so why not bring him in? Obviously it'll cost some money, and they've also won the treble, thrashing Watford, who've been great this season. Watford have been, but Manchester City still managed to beat them 6-0 in a cup final. Not just randomly in the league, but in a cup final, which proves how phenomenal this is. And I believe they will be dominating the leagues, but I think Liverpool will probably dominate more cup competitions and still be challenging them all the way. But they have to go in S tier. Now, that is my personal tier list for this season's Premier League clubs. Now, if you want me to do any other type of football tiers, or any tiers, maybe the heroes on Star Wars Battlefront 2, or a ranking list on them, because I like playing that game, or anything like that, please leave a comment below. Also, leave a comment below on how you would rank these teams in a tier list. So yeah, this has been this, or somewhere around here will show my tier list. Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Till next time, peace.